All right, so I've started on my, let's see, the even with wiping it 3 times, you still get a little bit on your fingers. So, and the thing is, with anything indigo blue or turquoise, you get this. You get cool color. So be aware of that. You know, I mean, it's up to you whether you want to periodically wash your hands because you don't want to get it on here. So that's your call. Once you've wove it, it's good. I've wiped this 3 times. When I put it in the water, I let it get warm and supple, maybe 30 seconds, and I pull it out. Don't let it sit in there. Okay? So, the first 4 rows are just over and under. Starting again, just like I did with the 3/16 on the bottom, or my smaller stuff on the bottom. Okay, now I'm a lap weaver. This is odd for me to weave this way, so, but I want to show you how you do it. Once again, I'm making sure that I'm flaring out. I don't want to get those stakes too close, okay? I'm going to pull this way because if you get them too tight, you can't get that in there. It's not that bad for when you start doing twill, especially when you're going over like 1 and 3, but just doing plain here, you need to make sure that these are starting to flare out a little bit, and you're given equal space in between your stakes. Don't get them real tight. You won't be able to get them through there. All right, so I'm going to do these 4 rows, and then we're going to talk. Okay, so I've got my 3 rows of just plain weave done. It's looking pretty good. My shape's all right. Now I see that these, there's some that are coming in, right? And that's okay. I'll make a concentrated effort when I'm weaving these to make sure that they go out. Okay, but my shape's looking pretty good. I do have one little stake that I think might be a little bit weak in this, and if it ends up being that way, I'll put another one on top of it, or I'll replace it depending on if it doesn't have enough rigidity to be a stake. My pattern says on row 4 it's going to be over 1, under 2. Okay, it doesn't matter which one I take. I just want to make sure it's not on something that I started. So this is going to be my over 1, and under 2. Yeah, so this, you think, what? That's wrong, right? But it isn't, because we're starting twill now. So don't freak and think, well, it doesn't work. It has to be over one of these guys. Doesn't matter which one it is, but it does have to be over one of these guys. Over 1, under 2. All right, so we're going to weave it out. Over 1, under 2. Over 1, under 2. And like I say, I am a lap weaver. I don't usually weave on the table, so that is not a natural position for me. But if that works for you, and I know there's a lot of people that stand up when they're weaving, that's cool too. So, but you know, for demonstration purposes, so you can see this well, that's how we're gonna do it. So, over 1, under 2. And I'm going to do this whole row around because I want to show you what happens. This is the stake that I'm thinking is a little bit weak. So I'm going to go ahead with this one. But I think when I come around, what I'll do is to strengthen that, I got 2 options. I can either take another one and stick it down in there, or I can take one and put it on top of it to make that a little stronger. But it's just feels a little wimpy. How's that? So, as I come around here, doing a 1, 2, I come to my beginning one, and I see if I'm on my weave. Now, you can tell, just with what I'm doing here, that twill is a lot looser weave than plain over and under. Okay, so I'm over here and I'm under 2 here, which makes me over my beginning, and that is where I want to be. Then I'm gonna, because I can't really count 4, but I don't want this to show, I'm gonna cover this up. I can either go 3 there, and that's okay, or I'd have to go all the way over there. I don't want that bulk. So on this particular one, I'm just gonna go 3. Remember that The whole point of doing start and stop is not to see the beginning and not to see the end. And even though that's not 4, that accomplishes that. Okay. So my next row says I'm going to be over 3, under 3. But I got to make sure of my placement, right? So I'm going to go back and look where I've got this double stack at. And actually I'm going to turn to one that's another double stack at. And that's going to be my over 3. So I've got these two stacked on one another, and it's going to be over 3, under 3, right? So, and I like to put a clip on it just to hold it. And then it shows me, oh, it's coming up. Over 3, under 3. And I'm going to be centered over these guys. Over 3, under 3. Okay, so I'm going to weave this one up, and then I'll come back and talk to you about the next one. Okay, so I am now on 4, 5, row 6, okay? And row 6 tells me that I would need to be over 2, under 1. So it's over 2. I'm still looking at this as my, where the heck am I and where do I start that? I mean, you always rotate it, right? So you're not starting at the same point, but this is what I'm looking at. So over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, okay? And it takes about the 3rd row for twill to start tightening up. Okay, you see how this is kind of loosey-goosey over here as I come around to it. Over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. And I'm checking to make sure that every time I come to one of these, like that's a little loose, I'll have to tighten it up, that I'm on my pattern, okay? Over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. And I'm there again, so I'm checking that to make sure I'm on. Like I say, that one is a little bit too loose, so I'm gonna go back through here and thread that in. And like 3 rows it really takes for it to tighten up. So when you're doing this, and like on this row before, it's too loose. But I can go walk it around and tighten it up. So I'm gonna come back to my weaver because I got that tightened back up. And after you get these first 3 rows in, it is easier. But I'm always checking it every time I come around to make sure that I got, oh yeah, there's that double thing here, and then there's 3, and then I'm stacking on top of it, and it looks like the diagram, okay? And I always know that I'm on, checking that once again, pull that a little bit, because when I get back here, I'll be on top of the design. If I'm behind the design, then somewhere I've made an error. So 2, 1, 2, and I'm just gonna put that behind there. I'm trying to minimize the bulk as much as I can and make sure you don't see the beginning and ending points, okay? It's just easy to keep a clip on there and then give it a turn. And now I am on number 7, and that is over 3, under 3. And if I look at the diagram, that would be here, okay? So I'm going to do this first, what I would call the first diamond, for lack of a better term, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I now have that first diamond done, okay? So what I got to look at on my next set of diamonds that are offset is, where does that happen in correlation to this one? And one thing you will notice is that I started putting more, just to hold this down, because twill tends to be springy, I've used more clips as I've gone around, and there's nothing wrong with that. So anyways, back to the diamond. We have accomplished the diamond, right? So the next thing we need to do is look at where the next one is as it's offset. So this is row 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're now on row 9. It's under 3, over 3. Because what we've done is we've actually started our new one here. And then it needs to be over 3 there. So when you're finishing up one, you're actually starting on the next one. So here is, if you look right to the right of this diamond, right, you'll see this guy here, and that is the start of over 3. Over 3, under 3. Now you can tell that this is way too short, but I just want to show you how this works for the next offset. And like I say, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using a whole bunch of clips if you need to keep that down where you want it, because twill is springy. Okay, so I'm going to change this out for a real and I'll do my next diamond and then show you what that looks like. Okay, so we can see that we have our 2 diamonds done, 1, 2, and so here's the start of our next set and last set of the diamonds. So if we were looking at this, it would be this set here that we're doing next. So, and we've already done the bottom one, so our next one will be over 3, under 3. So you can see how the pattern changes. And it's real visible on camera. It's easy for me to see these. When you're this close to them and working on them, it's harder to see them. Okay, just so that you know that. So you think, wow, it doesn't look like what it looks like on camera. That's why. Okay, so, but just remember that once you've completed a diamond, you've already started the next diamond kind of diagonal to it, but with an over 1. Okay, so let's do that last diamond. I've got my 3 diamonds done, 1, 2, 3, all right, and I'm going to start back on my plain weave for 3 rows. But you remember when we did that first plain weave down here, we matched it up, right? So that it's like right on top of that plain weave from the twill. So we're going to do that same thing, and if you're looking for placement, go down here and find that same thing that you started with and go straight up. That's the one that you're going to start with, okay? So, and then this is just over and under. So remember, it looks funky when you're first starting doing this because you've done all this twill, and make sure that you don't push it down real hard because twill is springy, right? The other thing I'll tell you too is, like, if I'm looking at my basket and I see, oh, that looks like it could have maybe, you know, tightened up a little bit. It's okay to walk through it. Walk it around till you find where you did your start, stop, and tighten it up. That's fine too. Okay, so this is just plain weave for 3 rows. I'm going to do that, and then we'll switch over to that 3/16 again. We have our 3 diamonds done, 1, 2, 3, and our 3 rows of just plain over and under plain weave. Okay, so if there's anything that you don't like, maybe something's gappy and you feel like you need to walk it through, now would be the time to do that. Okay, I feel pretty good about what I've got, so I'm good to go. Now, one thing that I do at this point is I add my handles. Why do I add my handles now? I do this because when you start doing really tight weave, you can't get these suckers in there. So why do that? Put them in early, and then if you need to pull them up because they're not at the right spot, or push them down lower, you can do that. I do this with all my baskets. It just makes a lot more sense to me to put them in early and then weave around them than try to get that weave super tight and try to get it in there. Why do that? So I will put them in temporarily where I think they need to be. And like I said, I kind of want them across from one another, right? So there's the one, and so I'm going to look over here and kind of eyeball that and say, oh, well, that looks like a good place to stick this one. And do the same thing here. And then, like I say, if I need to go down lower, I can do that. If I need to pull it up, I can do that. You know. So I've got, like, what, 3 more rows of 3/16 to do. And I'm going to go ahead and weave the handle in like it's part of the stakes. Okay? And of course, even when I waited this long, they're kind of a pain to get in. So, you can shift them around as you need to, but for the most part, they're in there. Okay? And like I say, if they're up too high, I can push them down. But for right now, they're in there. And so we're going to go ahead then, because we've got all our design done now with the space-dyed twill stuff, and change back to that 3/16. Have our design done. So I'm going to go all the way around. I just want to show you weaving to the handle because I want this in the notch. So if it's not placed where, well, hey, this hit the camera, that'll work. If it's not placed where it'll hit it, see how that's, let's see if you can see that. It's in the notch. In the notch. Can you see it? Yeah, there we go. So if it's in the notch, that's where I want it to be. If not, then I'm going to either push that handle up or down, depending on what it needs. Okay, so I'm going to cut and tuck. And to cut and tuck, I need scissors and I need a weave right tool. So one of the things that I like to do, usually you look at, okay, what is like on top of, and then you use that one and cut it, and you can do that. That works fine. But one of the things that I want to do is I'm going to cut these flush because that's where my handle is, right? And so these two and these I like to make sure are down, regardless of what I got to do here. Okay, so I just feel like that. I mean, when you look at this, let's see if you can see. All right, so you see that I've got 3 twines on that notch in the handle. That's not going to pull out, but it doesn't hurt to make sure that you've secured that as much as possible around that handle, because if something's going to bust or pull out, especially if you load this with a bunch of weight, that'll be it. So when I cut and tuck, you see that it's probably about 4 inches. I am not one that says, well, you've got to put it right, you know, I don't do this. I'm threading it all through this 3/16. That will drive me crazy. So what I do is I come down like maybe 3 rows and start putting it on the twill. Why do I do that? Well, you got to remember why you cut and tuck in the first place. The only thing that you're really doing is you're making it so all that weave does not come up. Well, it's not going to come up with that twine on it. We know that. You know, so basically all you're doing is getting rid of these guys and making them look neat. You know, because we've done that twine on the top. So I will go down 3 or 4 depending on where the twill's at and put these all in. Every other one, and I'll put you through the boring process. But just so that you know, I do try to do both of these at the handle. It just makes it a little bit more secure. Maybe it doesn't, but I think it does. So we're gonna go with that.